Back here at home, a North Carolina man is facing a number of federal charges this morning after an hours-long standoff with police that he streamed live on Facebook. NBC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams has more from Washington.
Nearly 5 hours after he parked his pickup and claimed to have explosives, a 49-year-old man from North Carolina gave up and followed instructions to crawl away, ending a tense standoff.
He got out of the vehicle and surrendered, and the tactical units that were close by took him into custody without incident.
Capitol Police say it all began a little after 9 a.m. when the man, Floyd Ray Roseberry, parked his black pickup on the sidewalk of the Library of Congress, called 911, and said he had a bomb. That's about a block from the U.S. Capitol. Nearby buildings were evacuated, including the Supreme Court and a House of Representatives office building. Police and federal agents swarmed in, including the FBI and ATF, and streets were shut down several blocks away. A massive response in a city still on high alert after the Capitol riot and social media threats of further violence. At first, police say Roseberry communicated with them by writing notes on a dry erase board saying, "Don't shoot me," at one point, and asking for his preacher. And as it began, he was actually sending a live feed from inside the truck to his Facebook page.
All right, guys. Looks to me like I'm getting ready to make a phone call.
He then made a long series of anti-government statements. A short time later, Facebook cut off the feed and took down his page, but while it was still active, he showed glimpses of what looked like it could be a bomb and said he had potential explosive material in a toolbox in the bed of the pickup. Investigators reached out to his family members and searched his North Carolina home, looking for clues of what he might be up to. Police sent a robot carrying a phone so they could negotiate with him, but they say he never used it and simply gave up.
Pete Williams reporting there. While most members of Congress thanked the Capitol Police for their good work yesterday, one Republican lawmaker appeared to sympathize with that man arrested for the bomb threat near the Capitol. Alabama Congressman Mo Brooks released a statement that reads this way, quote, "I understand citizenry anger directed at dictatorial socialism and its threat to liberty, freedom, and the very fabric of American society. The way to stop socialism's march is for patriotic Americans to fight back in the 2022 and 2024 election. I strongly encourage patriotic Americans to do exactly that, more so than ever." He did earlier pray for the safety of the Capitol Police as well. Congressman Brooks was one of the Republican lawmakers, you'll remember, who spoke at the Trump rally ahead of the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol and voted in favor of challenging the 2020 election results. Brooks was ridiculed by Democrats as well as by Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, who tweeted, "Are we going to be the party that keeps stoking sympathy for domestic terrorists and pushes out truth, or finally take a stand for truth? I've made my decision, so has Mo. Now it's up to GOP conference leadership to make theirs." That from Adam Kinzinger. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has yet to comment on Brooks or the incident near the Capitol, Joe.
Yeah, it's remarkable that the leader of the Republicans in the House hasn't condemned a fellow member who actually was praising a domestic terrorist, a potential domestic terrorist who delivered a tirade, this according to the Washington Post, over Facebook Live video in which he assailed Biden and the Democrats, called for a revolt against the federal government, and claimed there were other patriots waiting in vehicles elsewhere in D.C. Quote, "The revolution is on. It's here. It's today," he said in his live stream. "America needs a voice. I will give it to them." And then went on attacking Willie. Joe Biden, Democrats said they're killing America, and this is a sort of rhetoric. This is a sort of language that we saw leading into January the 6th. We saw the results of that, and this is so simple to condemn. You have someone who's a domestic terrorist who says he has a bomb by the Library of Congress right across the street from the United States Capitol, and you have a member of Congress praising him. It's un-American, and I just wonder what Republicans would say of Democrats if Democrats were praising domestic terrorists that were calling for an insurrection against the United States government.
And just to remind people, at that January 6th rally before the assault on the Capitol, it was Congressman Brooks who told the crowd to, quote, start taking down names and kicking ass. That was his quote before that crowd did, in fact, go to the Capitol. Let's bring in professor at Princeton University, Eddie Glaude Jr., and New York Times reporter and MSNBC national security analyst, Michael Schmidt. Good morning to you both. Eddie, let me begin with you. We can be thankful that there was no bomb in that truck, that there was no explosion, that no one was hurt yesterday. But what do you think when you hear his rant on Facebook and then you hear a Republican congressman, who I'm sure is not alone in his sentiment, offering his support to the man?
Well, it makes concrete. Good morning, Willie. It makes concrete that the domestic terror threat is real. We know what has happened since January 6th. That the stoking of resentment among those fellow Americans who feel marginalized, who feel that they're being replaced, that it stands in some ways, Willie, on the precipice of violent reaction. And so this was a concrete example of the potential of that powder keg in some ways. But it's also the cynical nature of the politicians who tried to exploit that resentment, who tried to exploit that sense of being marginalized and alienated. So Congressman Brooks is trying to, in some ways, render, although he might say that this is a terrorist act, he still, like respond to the folks in January 6th. They describe these people as patriots at times. And so there is a debate about what constitutes patriotism here. Some of us want to describe these folk as domestic terrorists. That's what they are. Other people want to see them as patriots defending an America that's under threat. So we see here very concretely the danger that faces the nation, it seems to me, Willie.
You know, Michael Schmidt, as Eddie said, the threat from domestic terrorism is real. It remains with us. Not only that, but you have Republican members of Congress, elected Republicans, actually voicing support for somebody who says he has a bomb and says he's going to start the revolution and going to blow up the Library of Congress or Congress itself. And yet, no condemnation from Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, this is the exact type of threat that the Department of Homeland Security and state and local law enforcement have been warning about in the past few months, since January 6th. It's this type of person. It's an aggrieved individual who wants to take, the world into their hands, wants to take the law into their hands and do something drastic. The Capitol has always been a target going many years back for individuals like this. But what we saw on January 6th was that thousands of them were willing to do this. And unfortunately, if you talk to law enforcement analysts and folks looking at this problem across the country, it's that there are many, many more of these people sitting around today willing to do this, thinking about doing this, seeing this, going onto Facebook, talking about it, and then, like this individual, broadcasting it on Facebook. So the Capitol, which always had people that were crazy from across the country that wanted to come there to do something, and at times there would be standoffs and different violence. It has just enhanced it. January 6th has made it an even bigger shrine to these individuals, and the unfortunate legacy of that day living on as an attraction for more and more people to want to go up there and to gain attention and to scare and undermine the basic fabric of our democracy.
Yeah, and Joe, yet another example, if we needed one, of the enemy from within this country fueled by Trump. And yet another example, if we needed one, of Facebook. Literally, the guy was broadcasting live on Facebook. They had to bring him down, but not after he broadcast live on Facebook. I mean, this platform is being used to fuel the most violent of the most violent rhetoric and acts that we see in live real time.
It is, I think it's fascinating. Well, first of all, that of course he chose Facebook, as so many people did leading into January the 6th. But what Michael Schmidt said, really, Eddie Glaude makes, it's just a great insight. We've always had crazy people that have always done crazy things around the United States Capitol. In fact, if these were normal times, we might do a one-sentence statement and move on to the next story. What makes 2021 different? What makes this different? What makes it different is you have a Republican member of Congress who says he understands domestic terrorism. He understands, he supports the domestic terrorism. He gets it, right? And he's one of the same people that talked about before the insurrection against the United States of America on January the 6th. And again, some people are offended when you say that. Look up sedition. Look up sedition in the federal statutes, and you will see that what happened on January the 6th lines up so neatly with that definition in the statutes. But, Eddie, you've got a member of Congress saying, I support this. You have a leader of the Republican Party that refused to condemn it. And then you have a former Republican president of the United States whose lies over years have created this sort of environment. So you have a Republican Party that sits mute while domestic terrorists plot the next overthrow of the U.S. government.